What's going on, guys? Change My Mind episode 3 here. Today we're going to do the connection between Trump and Epstein and a whole lot of other unsavory individuals. But let's get right to that. So first up, we got this lovely chart here connecting all these sickos and what they've done. Maybe not what they would like to be famous for, but it's what we are here to talk about today. Some things that may not be in the news, but you can certainly look up and check for yourself. So without further ado, let's just go straight up and down through this graph, and hopefully you guys see what I see. Or hopefully you don't see what I see. Hopefully you change my mind. Hopefully you get some new information that makes me think that anyone who's anyone isn't a satanic pedophile. But cheers. Yeah, it's hard for me to be happy about this topic or even to do this podcast. It's nauseating, but I'll try to be as professional and punctual as I can. I don't want this to go on any longer than it has to. So that being said, first up, looking at this chart, we've got Mr. Roy Cohn. So Roy Cohn was a mentor of Donald Trump and Roger Stone. He was a homosexual and alleged pedophile that died of AIDS. He was a central figure at the famed drug and orgy room at nightclub Studio 54. According to James Rothstein, Cohn admitted that he was part of a sexual entrapment operation that included compromising politicians with child prostitutes. His father was a New York State Supreme Court justice. Moving on from Roy Cohn, we have Roger Stone. He was a protege of Roy Cohn and a friend of Donald Trump and former Trump lobbyist. He worked on the Trump campaign before becoming a lead pro-Trump propagandist in alternative media. He's also a notorious swinger that frequents an exclusive swinger club in Miami, and he played a major role in bringing down Eliot Spitzer by informing the FBI about his use of prostitutes. Spitzer was likely set up by Stone, who had previously sent threatening voicemails to Spitzer's father. He also is a promoter of Pizzagate, child pornography pedophilia. So moving on from Roy Cohn and Roger Stone, we have Donald Trump, who, like Roger Stone, is a protege to Roy Cohn. He's also exposed as Gawker as being in Epstein's little black book, and there are alleged child rape victims that have dropped charges after threats on her life. Stormy Daniels claims she received threats to keep quiet and was paid hush money by Trump via Michael Cohen. Virginia Roberts claims that she was first approached by Ghislaine Maxwell while working as a towel girl at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Speaking of Epstein in 2002, Trump was quoted saying, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." End quote. Absolutely disgusting, joking about it like, oh, haha, just little girls. Yeah, no, little girls, like, not okay. This is nothing new. Settled Jill Hath's sexual assault case against him. That's another fun fact about Donald Trump. And Donald Trump also met his current wife through his exploitative former model agency. Moving down from Trump, we've got Alexander Acosta, who is a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida and also was the guy that got Epstein a sweetheart deal back in 2007, 2008. He cut a deal with Epstein's legal team, Alan Dershowitz, who we'll get to, that prevented federal charges against Epstein and gave Epstein an extremely light sentence. Appointed labor secretary for the Trump administration as well, now Alexander Acosta is ironically Trump's right-hand man, as again, he is the labor secretary for the Trump administration. He's also the guy that got Jeffrey Epstein off a decade ago for doing exactly what he's been doing his whole life and just finally got caught up for real for it and got suicided ultimately. But regardless, moving on from there, now we have Mike Cernovich, who is a heavy promoter of the debunked Pizzagate conspiracy. He also attempted to have documents unsealed that protected Virginia Roberts for the benefit of Dershowitz and Ghislaine Maxwell. So now we have Les Wexner, who is a secretive billionaire Jewish supremacist of Russian descent and the protege of Max Fisher, who started Mega Group. He's the chairman and CEO of L Brands, and his companies Victoria's Secrets, A&F, etc. used MC2 models connected to cotton plantations and sweatshops. He allegedly runs a huge international drug running operation previously run by Max Fisher. And again, Les Wexner is the protege of Max Fisher. Les Wexner is connected to serious organized crime figures implicated in a mob style. His name and address appear as a highlighted person of interest in Epstein's little black book, and he runs the Wexner Foundation that finances pro-Jewish and Israel causes. Now we have Jeffrey Epstein, who is a protege and financed by Les Wexner and was Wexner's accountant, and he's a convicted pedophile. His defense team, Dershowitz, cut a deal with Acosta that made sure he didn't face federal charges and also received many privileges and protection for certain things. Was in a long-term relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell and was very friendly with Dershowitz. He used Jean-Luc Brunel's MC2 model agency to find underage girls alleged for sex and prostitution and entrapment, and he financed a private science foundation at Harvard University. So now we have Alan Dershowitz, who is a hardcore Zionist and is also exposed as being on the Lolita Express flight logs and being in Epstein's Little Black Book. He claims he met Epstein through Lady Day Rothschild and is accused of engaging in underage sex acts with Virginia Roberts and acts as a pro-Trump pundit across media platforms. He's part of Epstein's legal team and is a former Harvard law professor. All these guys are connected. Next, we've got Charles C. Johnson. He runs troll disinfo website gotnews.com. He ran a disinfo campaign against Virginia Roberts, who is one of the victims of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He worked for Dershowitz as a researcher and hired Dershowitz in frivolous defamation lawsuit against Gawker. Claimed along with Mike Cernovich that he possessed information that would bring down Chuck Schumer. It was all a hoax. He appeared on the Alex Jones show. And also, this Charles C. Johnson guy has appeared on the Alex Jones show, which is another shill. Add up the name Alex Jones on the Pythagorean numerology calculator, it adds up to 33. All these guys, Bill Gates, Alex Jones, all those guys that are these front-runner shill guys, their names add up to 33. Moving on from there, we have Robert Maxwell, who is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell and dubbed as a Israel super spy. He's a Soviet Zionist agent, according to the FBI, and greatly assisted in arming of Jewish terrorist organizations following World War II. He's implicated in Promise software backdoor spying scandal. He's a media mogul that owned the Mirror Group, which greatly assisted the Soviet goals of misinforming and dumbing down the British public through their publications. He was allegedly murdered by Mossad after he made threats over money by authors of the book Robert Maxwell, Israel's Super Spy, and he was an acquaintance of Donald Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell, she is the daughter of Robert Maxwell and close friend and partner of Jeffrey Epstein. She was the procurer of girls for their honeypot child sex ring and allegedly was involved sexually with minors and being sued for defamation against Virginia Roberts. She's a friend of Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Donald Trump, and who were all linked to Epstein and have been accused of sex with minors. So that's a real good nail in the coffin there. Miss Ghislaine Maxwell, you'll never hear her testify. She'll be killed just like Epstein. She knows too much. But anyways, you got Miss Ghislaine Maxwell, who is allegedly involved with sex with minors. She's being sued for defamation against Virginia Roberts and friend of Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Donald Trump. All sick fucks who are linked to Epstein and have been accused, all of them have been accused of having sex with minors. Some have been convicted, like Mr. Epstein. So now we have Prince Andrew, who is good friends with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and accused by Virginia Roberts of having underage sex with her and that she was paid $15,000 by Epstein to do so. Now we have Bill Clinton, who is a friend of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, and his name appears in Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs, and his name appears in the Black Book, and he visited Epstein's private island. Everybody knows Bill Clinton's a creep, and in 10 years you'll know Donald Trump was. You just don't know it now. Now we have Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild. She is the wife of Sir Evelyn de Rothschild and friend of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and owns G. Maxwell NY Mansion. Name appears in Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs and very friendly with the Clintons. So you got the Rothschilds being nice with the Clintons. It's because that's England being nice with America. They're all in power, though. Now you have Jean-Luc Brunel, who was the owner of the MC2, which had offices in Miami, New York, and said to be good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He provided Epstein with girls for sex, prostitution, and entrapment. He hid behind his French citizenship to avoid deposition and being served criminal charges in relation to Epstein's cases, and he's a sexual deviant that is said to be excited by drugging girls and silently raping them. His name appears regularly in the Lolita Express flight logs. Total sicko. Sexual deviant that is said to be excited by drugging girls and silently raping them. Jesus Christ. So you got Jean-Luc Brunel, who is getting girls for Epstein and Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Clinton, and Prince Andrew, and potentially Donald Trump. So the funny thing to me is that all these guys, it's like the front is the modeling agency. Like Donald Trump had his model agency. You got Jean-Luc Brunel, MC2 model agency. All these guys, like, ooh, they love these model agencies. They love being around young girls. Perfect way to bring in even younger ones or just not be questioned while you're around young women. But it's just disgusting when they get caught doing what they have gotten caught doing. And so you got to remember that Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Donald Trump are all alleged or accused of having sex with minors. So cheers to that. Disgusting. It's not an accident that all these guys are connected and do the same things. They're all sick, and that's how they got to where they are, is because they have corrupted themselves in exchange for power, and that's a story as old as time. I don't have time to tell you that one today. So now we just got a picture of good old Donald Trump and Mr. Jeffrey Epstein taken from 1997, as if this is anything new. At the time, Donald Trump was a real estate developer, and Epstein was an American financier. Such respectable guys. See those titles, though, it's all on the surface level. It's so respectable. Even if you own a modeling agency, it's very respectable until it's not, until the truth comes out. So the surface truth is rarely the absolute truth. That is a quote by, I believe, Hunter S. Thompson. And that is the truth. He also said, in a world where everyone is guilty, the only crime is getting caught. But these guys have been caught, and that's what we're here to do, is expose. I don't mean to offend, I mean to inform. So anyone who loves Trump, I'm not meaning to offend you, I'm meaning to inform you. I hope he is a good guy and isn't what I say. Prove me wrong, change my mind. By Trump's own description, his social relationship with Epstein started several decades ago in the late 1980s, and describing Epstein to London Thomas Jr. of New York Magazine for a 2002 profile, Trump made a comment that in retrospect was frighteningly on the nose. I said it once, I'll say it again. Quote, I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Period. End quote. So Trump praised Epstein and dated their social relationship as beginning around 1987 and said that they shared taste for beautiful women, and especially noted that Epstein liked women on the younger side. Since Epstein's legal troubles became known, Trump's attorneys have tried to downplay his association with Epstein. Quote, he had no relationship with Mr. Epstein and had no knowledge whatsoever of his conduct, Trump lawyer Alan Garten told Politico in 2017. But even beyond Trump's own words, further up, there's a good deal of evidence that the two were friendly social acquaintances, at least through the early 2000s. Media reports from the late 1990s and early 2000s frequently mentioned Trump attending Epstein-hosted social events and Epstein attending events at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. Friends and associates of the pair told the Washington Post that Trump and Epstein had socialized for years, drawn together by a mix of money, women, and power. NBC News recently aired a video from 1992 of Trump and Epstein together at a Mar-a-Lago party discussing women and laughing together. The New York Times reported that according to businessman George Horonay, Trump asked him to organize a calendar girl party at Mar-a-Lago and said that he and Epstein would be the only men in attendance. The New York Times also reported that Epstein has claimed to people that he introduced Donald Trump to Melania, though this has never been corroborated. Trump called Epstein twice in November 2004, according to message pads seized from Epstein's Florida mansion by the government. Several phone numbers for Trump, including an emergency contact and a number for Trump security, were among many notable people's numbers that listed in Epstein's Black Book, which was later obtained by the government. Epstein's brother Mark testified that Epstein once took Trump on one of his planes to go from Florida to New York, saying that he thought it happened in the late 1990s. Mark Epstein also told the Post Trump flew on Epstein's planes numerous times. At some point around the time of Epstein's legal problems, the friendship appears to have ended. Imagine that. Trump has spread the story that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for making sexual advances to a masseuse. However, the New York Times reported that by some accounts, the two men only fell out after a failed business arrangement between them. The Washington Post reports that they were rival bidders for the same Palm Beach estate, and Trump won. Here is pedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein's little black book, and there's a lot of notable names in it. I'm going to leave the sources for everything I've shown today as well. It's going to be a lot easier for you guys that want to dig into this on your own and really go deeper than I did. By all means, I'm going to give you all my sources, but here is the little black book and all the celebrities in it. So here we got Alexander Acosta on Wikipedia, and some fun facts about him is that he's the only Hispanic person to have served in President Trump's cabinet. It's ironic, and since the wall talk or whatever. But anyways, he's also on here famous for being, in 2007, 2008, U.S. Attorney approved the plea deal that required Jeffrey Epstein to plead guilty in state charge of solicitation for the purposes of prostitution involving a 14-year-old girl. Yeah, so he entraps a 14-year-old and rapes her, and then he says, oh, she was a prostitute, and delay trial till she's 18 and be like, oh, look at her, she's 18, she was a prostitute. That's their only defense, and it's disgusting, but it got him off. Well, it got him an extremely lenient charge. But at that time, even, the prosecutors had identified 36 victims of Epstein. The deal required him to register as a sex offender and pay restitution of the victims, which ended up being 36 victims at that time. And that's probably why you didn't hear about it. Now here we're going to look at for a second, we got the fact that Epstein's pal, Jean-Luc Brunel, quietly sells off his infamous modeling business. Wonder why. So yeah, Mr. Sicko that likes silently drugging and raping girls, Mr. Modeling mogul Jean-Luc Brunel quietly sells off his MC2 agency in Miami, and the 74-year-old talent scout has long been accused of supplying underage girls to Epstein and of drugging and raping models himself. Brunel denied both of these charges. Brunel reportedly vanished after Epstein's jailhouse suicide, and I wonder why. Now I want to look at right now, we got the NARA, and that is the Electoral College, and it's where you go to see the election results. And I guess now would be a good time to share a quote by the Russian dictator Stalin. Those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. But anyways, you have the NARA, and to people that are like, oh, but Trump won, and like presidents aren't rigged, and it's not an inside job, and these guys aren't all pedophiles, and the system's here to help us, and it's not a band of corrupt cliques. It is nothing more than a cabal. It is a corrupt clique. It is everything you don't want it to be and more, I am sad to say. But you have the NARA, which is responsible for the result of the votes. So imagine a world where, we've heard on camera them say, oh yeah, technologies exist where if it's an electronic vote, technologies exist where it could rewrite the vote and have a different outcome, and it could basically deliver to the server a different outcome of the vote, and it would be undetectable. The only way you'd be able to detect it is if you had the source code or the computer it was done on. Otherwise, it wouldn't be detectable. And you can hear the government tell you that. And it's like, then why do we not do paper votes? And it's like, oh, well, we like to use computers. But those computers can totally be tampered with. You can listen to the government tell you that. And you can also see that all the outcome comes from one source, and that's what you'd call a single point of failure, and that's what you'd call the fact that they could be lying. Whether you don't like to think about it or not, they could be lying. So the NARA, they're the ones that give you the outcome of the vote, the election results, and it could be hacked, or it could be a lie, or it could be the truth, but it could be hacked, and it could be a lie. And as Russian dictator said, those who vote decide nothing, those who count the vote decide everything. So NARA, go to the Electoral College and look at it for yourself, because those numbers on a screen are just that. It's numbers on a screen. Who's to say that that's actually what the outcome was? Because you didn't count it, they did. And they have not been caught as being so honest in times previous, so I don't know why you believe them now. I do not. That's why I'm making this video. Last thing I'd like to say and share here is that we have the America media shutting down the Epstein story, and basically the corporate-controlled media in the United States has effectively shut down all reporting on the death of the politically connected multimillionaire sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein only 1 week after his body was discovered in a prison cell. Epstein's death was the most widely reported American event on the first few days of the week, with hours of coverage on cable television. It was the lead story on nightly network news programs, pages upon pages of reporting in the New York Times, Washington Post, and other leading daily newspapers. There was ample reason for such attention, particularly by the standards of sensation-obsessed American media. Epstein was, at least by reputation, both fabulously wealthy and dangerously predatory. He traveled in the highest circles of bourgeois society, hobnobbing with ex-presidents, future presidents, British royalty, and numerous billionaires, some of whom he claimed to have enriched enormously. And his crimes against teenage girls and young women had already resulted in a 2008 felony conviction that led to a slap on the wrist, and keeping with his status as a member of the class and super rich money managers. Only hours before his death, more over 2,000 pages of new documents were released linking many prominent world figures, including Prince Andrew and several top Democrats, and this was all to Epstein's sex trafficking activities. So I'll leave all my sources there. You can dig into it more if you want, and I'm really just going to leave it at that. To me, it's clear as day, and if you can't see it, I don't want to say I can't help you, but I don't want to make this a 4-hour podcast, and I hope you learned something and got something out of it, but that's all I got for you today. We'll be back with something new next time that hopefully isn't as disgusting, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.